Hello again, everyone. My name is Ron Fleitz, and welcome to Faith in Business. On this program, we speak with people in all facets of the business world, from throughout Middle Tennessee, to see how they share their faith in their businesses. As we all know, sharing our faith with friends can be challenging at times, but sharing in our business community can be far more challenging, sometimes even career adjusting, and yet extremely rewarding. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Daniel Schackle. Daniel is the general agent here in Middle Tennessee for Knights of Columbus Insurance. But far more than that, Daniel is a great human being with a fantastic story of faith to share in his personal life, in his business life, and in his direct family life with his son and his wife, who he will share about later on in the program. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Ron. Good to be here.
Just glad to have you because now that I've known a little bit more about your story, it is tremendous. And I guess one of the best things to do is start with where do you live and where you go to church and everything like that?
Yeah, well, we live in Dixon, Tennessee, and we're parishioners at St. Christopher's in Dixon. We've been living in Middle Tennessee for about 11 years. We've had the pleasure of living in all three dioceses in Tennessee.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, so you got a good flavor of the Catholics here.
Absolutely. So I started with the Knights of Columbus, who I work for now, about 16 years ago in Savannah, Tennessee. But
Savannah, is that near Dixon?
Savannah is down on the Tennessee River at the bottom of Tennessee. So where Alabama and Mississippi come together right there in Tennessee.
Obviously, you can tell I'm from Ohio, so sorry about that.
That's all right. We'll be geography challenged about Ohio, too. So, yeah, we moved there from Alaska. I was born in Anchorage. My father was a business owner up there. He started his own company, and I lost a sister when she was 8 years old. So he and Mom basically threw a dart at a map and said, let's go there. And we ended up in Savannah, Tennessee with 5 kids and went from being Alaska City kids to Tennessee farm kids.
Wow.
And a big Catholic community up there to being the only Catholic in my graduating class up until the last couple of years out of 235. So it was quite a culture shock moving into rural Tennessee from Alaska.
Yeah, that really is something. So you moved here, you moved to Savannah, and so you graduated from high school in Savannah.
I did. And then, I got accepted to the University of Tennessee, and I had my first cousin who was near my age come visit me. And we went and looked at my college and everything and made that nice little trip. But my first week in college, I came down with mono and I couldn't stay awake. I mean, I was in good shape. I was running miles in under 5 minutes, push-ups, the whole thing, really an athlete.
Yeah.
But by the time I got done with mono, I'd lost 30 pounds. I couldn't hardly get out of bed, do one push-up or anything.
Oh.
But in the most Tennessee thing ever, I got the mono from my cousin. So, when we went to see the college, I took a drink out of her Coca-Cola, and about a week later, she had mono, and about a month later, I had mono.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
So, that was one of my Tennessee stories from being Alaska. Just kidding, obviously. But.
Yeah, right. So that was college. Was that the end of college then, too?
Yeah, I couldn't stay awake for classes, and the university was gracious enough to say, hey, you can come back later. We'll back it out and refund your fees and everything and act like you weren't here.
That was nice.
Yeah, it was very good of them. But my parents weren't in the greatest financial situation at the time, and although my mother was, we'll find a way to help you. We'll find a way to help you. You know what? Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. Also, and I thought, why am I going to spend all this money? I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. And I can go in the military, and they'll pay for my school, and Mom and Dad won't have to worry about it. So I enlisted in the Air Force.
Okay.
And mainly, I thought I may make a career of it at the time, but after I got in there, I decided it wasn't for me. But mainly just so I could have money to go back to school. And it was a lot of fun. Worked on F-16 fighter jets while I was in there, and then, when I came out, the first job I found was as a correctional officer. So I did that for several months, and then they made me what would be kind of like a lieutenant of everything outside of the housing units.
Okay.
And
is that back here in Tennessee?
It was back in Tennessee, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Near Savannah, South Central Correctional Center.
All right.
So we could spend a day on those stories. But anyway, I met my wife in prison. And I don't know how to drop that bomb. But
right.
Anyway, I was able to do my job by radio, and she was the secretary for the chief of security, so I would spend my afternoons in her office with my feet on her desk making the greatest sale of my life. So we finally got married, and she had 2 little ones that they had an unfortunate situation before, but I had ended up adopting them, and they're 28 now. And then we've had 11 children in 23 years, almost 24 years now.
Phenomenal.
So it's kept us pretty busy.
As you were sharing that before, I was thinking there might be somebody there listening. What were they in for?
Right. Exactly. It's always good to lead with that.
Right.
Well, we had a bunch of children, and prison guards don't make a lot of money for what they put up with. But I figured one day I would be a warden and it'd be fine. We really, my wife was not Catholic. In fact, she was very Protestant and all about birth control when we got married.
Okay.
But, and I always say I reverted when she converted because I went through CCD and I heard all of that stuff, and I was, in 8th grade and I really didn't care, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
and so I knew it, and my mom would probably slap me in the mouth because she was RCIA director and all that. I had no excuse. But anyway, my wife's asking me questions now that I'm grown, like, why can't we do this and why can't we do that? And the only answer I have is because the Pope said so. Why are you asking all these questions? What is the matter with you, So I went through RCIA with her, and that's really when I relearned my faith as an adult, and it really took hold for me, as her and I both had a real big conversion early on, and we decided at that point that we were just going to try to live our lives the way God wanted us to and not offend him. And I mean, it's pretty simple, really, the formula that we bought into. So, you don't make a lot of money, and I wasn't looking to leave, but my wife went over my head. She went down to the church, and she was Protestant, and she had a lot of problems with Mary and all this kind of stuff, but she went down to the church and lit a candle and said, okay, Mary, if you want me to have all these kids, you better find my husband a better job.
Right, okay.
And I wasn't even looking, but had a contact from a acquaintance in the past, and within just a few weeks, I had another job that doubled my income.
Hey.
And so I guess that was a sign
doggone
from
good
Mary
prayers.
that she wanted us to have all these kids, right? So, but we just kept, trusting God and working hard, and we have 6 or 7 kids. And I remember asking my dad one time, "How did you feed all of us?" And he said, "Just pray like it's all up to God and act like it's all up to you."
Right.
I was like,
right.
All right, fair enough. I'll do that. Over time, whatever I got to do, it's fine. And so that's kind of the theory we lived by. But also, that job was great. We made a great living, and were able to save some money and things. But looking down the road, we knew someday these kids were going to get married and go to school and do all these other things, and it wasn't going to be enough at some point. So we decided to be proactive about it. And also as a part of that journey, I have 63 first cousins on my dad's side, so lots of big families. But I also think that part of what's important to all of us is heroes. Somebody to look at that has done this before so that you can do it, right? And I remember telling myself that in basic training. Millions of people have done this. You know what? It can't be that bad. It can be done, and that's kind of the mindset. So I actually had one of my dad's first cousins ran an insurance agency in Oklahoma.
Okay.
He had 13 kids, but it was a farmer's insurance agency. But just looking around, all of my aunts and uncles and dad's family that had big families, they were either farmers or they ran their own businesses. And I had taken some classes after I came out of the Air Force, economics, different things I was interested in that I thought I wanted to pursue, but never really pursued a degree track. So I was also Grand Knight of my council at 28 and trying to revive that because it just kind of become stale. And
that's taken on quite a bit, just to be the Grand Knight of a council.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had 7 children, grand knight of my council, 28 years old, or, trying to start a business up. So trying to stay industrious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
A+ there.
I started reading. I've always been a big fan of trying to figure out what God wants in your life. So I was reading this book called 40 Days to the Work You Love. I don't remember who wrote it. My apologies to the author, but I was in that period of searching in my life when I also read Parish Priest, which is the biography of Father Michael J. McGivney, the founder of the Knights of Columbus. Mm-hmm. I wasn't reading that for a career reason. I was reading that to try to revitalize my council and figure out, where's the fire been lost in my council with the Knights of Columbus? How do we get it back?
Right. Uh-huh.
But little did I know that was going to ignite my career fire, and that book was going to become my vocation.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Interesting.
So I had, when I got out of the military, I was going to be transitioning to veterans group life insurance, which I thought wasn't a very good deal. So I called the Knights of Columbus. This is when I was deputy grand knight, and said, I need to buy some life insurance. So we had a guy drive all the way up from Huntsville to Savannah. It was about a 3-hour drive to write insurance on my wife and I. Mm-hmm. And God bless him, nothing against him, but I just didn't feel like he was that good at it,
Right. Uh-huh.
After I read this Parish Priest book, we didn't have an agent, and I don't remember. I had been a knight then for 10 years. I mean, I kind of grew up in the Knights. I was at all the activities with my dad. His friends were my mentors growing up. It was a very, very blessed way to grow up, really. But I had never met a Knights of Columbus agent, even though I'd been around it for 28 years.
Right.
So he came up and sold us that, and I read Parish Priest, and I thought, there's not an agent for 3 hours from me. Father McGivney wanted no Catholic family to be destitute by the loss of a breadwinner. How many Catholic families don't have the benefit of this program around me? So I decided that I couldn't think of a better vocation to spend my life on and try to raise my family and provide for my family than taking care of widows and orphans of Catholic families. So that's how I ended up in my career. It was more the Grand Knight journey, learning about Father McGivney, and then just jumping into this as a vocation, not so much as a business. But
almost a ministry.
It is a ministry to me. It always has been. But I mean, it's scary, right? Mm-hmm. You got seven kids. Your 8th one on the way. You're walking away. Everybody said, "Are you crazy? You got the best job in 5 counties. How could you leave that to go sell insurance?" My own father told me I was crazy. I shouldn't do it. Yeah. He told me before he passed away, though, that he regretted telling me that because he feels like that I really found what God intended me to do, and he told me not to do it because he couldn't do it, not because I couldn't do it. Which I thought
that's
my dad was such a great role model for me my whole life. I was so blessed to have him. But I mean, we're all scared to make choices like that. But I guess I always felt like I'm far enough down this road of trusting God that if I feel like He's pushing me in a direction, I better go. Mm-hmm. Right. Because the most dangerous place for me is not to be over there where He wants me to be, where I want to be. Is the most dangerous place because, everyone would always tell me, "What are you doing? You can't afford all these kids, but God can afford them." Right?
Right.
He can provide for them. And every time we had a baby, we got another loaf of bread. I got a promotion. I got changed a job. I got an opportunity like the Knights of Columbus. It's just the doors slowly open, and those openings weren't apparent at the beginning. I never would have guessed in a million years that, 20 years ago, living in a 1,000-square-foot house with 5 kids and just working 3 jobs at the time, actually, because I wasn't making enough at my primary job, working 3 jobs that you and I would be sitting here talking right now. It's just God just keeps opening doors, trying to help us as long as we stay on His path and that His will be done, because it's not always easy street either, right?
That's right.
Sometimes God asks us to do really hard things.
And you threw it up to Him, and He gave you the way.
I just trust Him. I mean, I have no choice. Like I said, I can't feed 13 kids, but God can. So I have no choice but to let Him help me do it. And I don't want to get away from Him too far because I don't want Him to stop helping me.
Very fair. Good comment. So So now you're now working for the Knights of Columbus agency, and is this at this point in time? Are you the only agent in the area, or?
So I started out in Savannah, which I basically covered all the councils between Nashville and Memphis, but not in the city. Mm-hmm. So lots of driving. I did that for several months, and Chattanooga, the guy in Chattanooga failed in the business, and so it came open, and I raised my hand and said, I want to move to Chattanooga so I can see my family more. Because I was spending 16 hours behind the steering wheel before I even saw somebody. That's half a work week just driving around.
Sure.
So moved my family to Chattanooga. And again, we got there. Everybody said, what are you, crazy? You can't feed all these kids selling the insurance. And what are you going to do when everybody buys it? And, this guy couldn't make it. What makes you think you can feed your family on all of this? But like water off a duck's back. I don't care. Their opinion doesn't matter to me one hill of beans, because I've got to make sure all these families are taken care of. This is what God wants me to do, and I don't care what they think. Right. This is in God's hand, not theirs. And I also prayed a lot to Father McGivney during those times, because it was pretty scary, and
sure.
My whole thought in coming into this is that I'm going to carry on what Father McGivney did. And this guy rode around in his off time in Connecticut with no coat, trying to find people, Catholic families to protect. So that was kind of my mentality as well, that I've got to do whatever I've got to do to take care of people. And if I do the right thing, my family will be fine. And that was my whole
You can't begin
thought.
to know the admiration I have for you, because I used to get terrified, and we only had 4 kids. And look at the family that you have, and you had full faith.
Well, Ron, don't admire me too much, because my family is what made me who I am. I said I wasn't looking for changes of careers many of the times that I changed. But were it not for us accepting those gifts that God sent us, of those human lives that we were responsible for, I may have slipped into some comfort situation of sloth or whatever and just said, I'm fine right here. I've got my truck and my boat and I'm done. I can live my life of happiness and leisure. But all of the children that God sent us, it formed me into the man that I am out of necessity. So that's one thing I think we've lost some in Catholic culture as our family size has shrunk, is that it's enabled us, as I know there's a lot of ladies listening out there, and nothing against you, but just from a man's point of view, I think it's enabled a lot of us as men to be softer, and not push ourselves.
I would definitely agree with you.
And do those things that our ancestors have done out of necessity, that turned out to be something amazing, right? So I can't take a whole bunch of credit for it. I mean, God helped me, and I'm so thankful for my kids, because they have pushed me to become the man I am and helped form me. So
yeah, but that glue that they have at the top, all those kids, you and your wife, I mean, that just says a lot, and it's due to your faith, of which your faith extends considerably even further, which we want to talk about at this particular point in time too, because you had one of your children, Michael, okay, you found out when Michelle, your wife, was pregnant, that there were some issues. And if you'd be so kind to share that information with us, because it is a tremendous story.
It is a tremendous story, and I can't still believe it sometimes. People ask, well, how did you react whenever that happened to you? And I say, well, my patron is St. Peter, and so the same way as him, depart from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man,
Right.
It's God is very real in all of our lives, and even as much as he's moved in our life, it was still a shock to see him move in the way that he did with my son, Michael, and that is that, of course, he's number 13, right? So
right.
I guess Mary wanted us to have all these kids because number 13 was going to be important to the church, apparently. And if we had decided to stop at 8, we wouldn't be here today. But
no, that's...
Anyway, we got a Down syndrome diagnosis for our youngest son. And
this was early on in the pregnancy?
Yeah, we were due in July, and they told us at New Year's Eve, actually, that he had Down syndrome. We had already told the children that we were pregnant on Christmas.
Yeah.
So then a couple weeks later, they sent us to another clinic that was more high risk, genetic counseling, all that kind of stuff, and had another ultrasound. And they brought us in a back room and said, "You see how the baby is all swollen up like a balloon, and his organs are just floating around in this big sea of fluid and everything. This is fetal high drops, and we're very sorry, but any child that has ever develops fetal high drops and a genetic abnormality like trisomy 21 has never survived the diagnosis." So you
Crushing news.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that at all. In fact, we were a little bit excited that he had Down syndrome. We have a bunch of children already, and if you've ever spent time around Down syndrome children, they're so happy, they're so loving, they're so childlike forever, and
right,
just
they are.
trusting and beautiful souls. And we knew that he was gonna teach our other children a lot. And we decided to name him Benedict Ives. But yeah, she told us that you have absolutely no chance of the baby surviving. And we had two options. We could terminate the pregnancy now or wait for the child to die and then just have a stillbirth. So we were both devastated. I mean, I was angry. My wife was crying. I had already relied on Father McGivney to take care of my family for years, just he and I riding together out here with the Knights of Columbus. So just in a moment of desperation, I just, like normal, turned to him and said, "Hey, Father, we both need a miracle here. If it's God's will, pray for him and I'll name him after you, And we were scheduled to go on an awards trip for the Knights of Columbus, and that was a pilgrimage to Fatima included in that. So we had masses said back here. We had all of our friends praying through Father McGivney while we were in Fatima. While we were there, Archbishop Lori, actually, after we did the rosary at the apparition site, he consecrated the Knights of Columbus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. That was really unexpected. He just felt inclined to do it that day on a whim. And then we had Mass in the Basilica, and the reading that day was from John, where the official comes to Jesus and says, "Please come, my son's going to die." And Jesus says, "You're a hard-hearted generation. You have to have signs and wonders to believe." So I know all of our listeners are probably better at paying attention to the gospel reading of the day than me, but it surprised me.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were both very shocked to have that reading. And then we came back home and had another ultrasound and saw a new doctor. And the doctor was telling my wife, we got to get you to meet the cardiologist, and we got to get you to meet the pediatrician, and all of these things at the hospital. And Michelle said, "Oh, what are you talking about? We have a 0% chance of survival here." And the doctor flipped back through, and she said, "You're the lady that just went to Fatima?" And she said, "Yes." And she says, "Well, now you're going to have a baby." She said, "All things are possible with God."
Now I got goosebumps.
All things are possible with God. So we never saw that other doctor again, the first one all the way through the pregnancy until the very end. But my plan was to hold him up like Simba after he was born and be like, "How many babies didn't make it because you tell people what you told us?" Probably not the most charitable thing to do. But so I left town on May 13th, which is the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima. I had a business trip to go to in San Antonio and was scheduled to return on May 15th. And 2015, we had an ordination that day, and Michelle had taken the kids to the hospital for a regular checkup, and so they kept her. And they said, "We're doing a C-section right now. Your placenta's failing." So I was in San Antonio. I wasn't here to do my Simba thing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Terribly. Anyway,
and
the doctor
sweating bullets at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The original doctor and the second doctor both came to do the C-section together. And thank goodness I wasn't there, because when she came in, my wife said, "Oh, I'm so glad to see you. I brought you a gift." And she had told us that she was raised Catholic. "Brought you a gift," gave her holy water and a miraculous medal, and the doctor broke down crying, put on the miraculous medal, and said, "You don't know how much this means to me, and we'll go have a baby." Now she keeps the two pictures on her desk and tells people that's to remind me there's no such thing as no hope.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And then, May of last year, the Holy Father approved the miracle as the miracle for the Beatification of Father McGivney of the Knights of Columbus. So one more miracle. Everybody keep praying. One more miracle so he can be canonized. He's a pretty special guy.
Yeah. Oh, that's just, it's a phenomenal story. You all had so much hope and prayer. And, as you were sharing with us before, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, Merry Christmas.
Oh, there were moments of desperation.
Happy New Year?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
There were moments of desperation and despair as well. I mean, I think we all go through that. It's just, you can't help the human emotions, but you just got to keep your eyes straight ahead and know that God's going to take care of it. And either way, I mean, if he died, and we've lost children before, we've prayed for things before and didn't get answers to them. We don't know why this is the one, right? I know there's people out there that are saying, I prayed so hard for my child and they didn't make it, and why does God hate me? And I don't know. We've done the same thing, and I don't know why God chose this, but it's his will. And it's like Jesus said in the garden, not my will, but your will be done. And that's always been our prayer. Let this cup pass from me if it's your will. But if it's not your will, we'll do it, whatever it is.
What a tremendous story, Daniel. I mean, and you've done everything you can do to keep your faith up in your business, keeping your faith up to your family and all those around you, and certainly sharing with us today. I mean, what a gift that you've given all the listeners out there, myself especially included. It's just a beautiful story.
Thank you, brother.
Well, we want to thank Daniel for sharing his story with us today. Please join us next week when Faith in Business will take a journey with another person in business who will also share how they keep Christ centered in their career as well as in their home life. My name's Ron Flights. Daniel and I thank you for sharing your precious time with us today. Faith in Business is made possible through the generous donations of our listeners and sponsors and the Diocese of Nashville. Shining the light of our Catholic faith in everyday life. This is Nashville Catholic Radio, 100.5 FM, and streaming at nashvillecr.com.